Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Namaha Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Shri Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhuvya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So Hare Krishna, dear devotees, dear Prabhujis, we are reading from Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 2, contents of the Gita summarized. And in our last session we read the 57th verse. Now we are going to read the 58th verse. So another very beautiful verse from Bhagavad Gita. Lord Shri Krishna is explaining the symptoms of samadhi, or a person who is situated in divine consciousness, to Arjunji. And Lord Shri Krishna continues his instruction. He says to Arjunji, Yada saharate chayam kurmo angani va sarvashah indriyani indriyarthebhyah tasya pragya pratishtha. So very beautiful verse. Yada saharate chayam kurmo angani va sarvashah indriyani indriyarthebhyas tasya pragya pratishtha. Yada saharate chayam kurmo angani va sarvashah indriyani indriyarthebhyas tasya pragya pratishtha. So very beautiful verse. Yada, when, saharate, winds up, cha, also, ayam, all these, kurmaha, tortoise, angani, limbs, iva, like, sarvashah, altogether, indriyani, senses, indriyathebhyah, from the sense objects, tasya, his, pragya, consciousness, pratishtha, fixed up. So in the previous verse also it was tasya pragya pratishtha. Pragya, perfect knowledge, and here Swami Srila Prabhupada is writing pragya, consciousness. So one who will have perfect knowledge will have that consciousness. So perfect knowledge or perfect consciousness, pragya pratishtha, fixed up. So one who is able to withdraw his senses from sense objects, as the tortoise draws his limbs within the shell, is to be understood as truly situated in knowledge. So truly situated in knowledge or truly situated in perfect consciousness, divine consciousness, so one and the same thing. So yada saharate chayam kurmo angani va sarvashah. Yada saharate chayam kurmo angani va sarvashah indriyani indriyarthebhyah tasya pragya pratishtha. One who is able to withdraw his senses from sense objects, as the tortoise draws his limbs within the shell, is to be understood as truly situated in knowledge. So wonderful verse. In the purport, Swami Srila Prabhupada writes, the test of a yogi, devotee or self-realized soul is that he is able to control the senses according to his plan. Most people, however, are servants of the senses and are thus directed by the dictations of the senses. That is the answer to the question as to how the yogi is situated. The senses are compared to venomous serpents. They want to act very loosely and without restriction. The yogi or the devotee must be very strong to control the serpents, like a snake charmer. So he never allows them to act independently. There are many injunctions in the revealed scriptures. Some of them are do nots and some of them are do's. Unless one is able to follow the do's and the do nots, restricting oneself from sense enjoyment, it is not possible to be firmly fixed in Krishna consciousness. The best example set herein is the tortoise. The tortoise can at any moment wind up his senses and exhibit them again at any time for particular purpose. Similarly, the senses of the Krishna conscious persons are used only for some particular purpose in the service of the Lord and are withdrawn otherwise. Keeping the senses always in the service of the Lord is the example set by the analogy of the tortoise who keeps the senses within. So, very, very beautiful verse and very beautiful purport. Many transcendental Krishna conscious concepts explained by His Divine Grace. Swami Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada in his beautiful purport explaining the beautiful meaning of Lord Shri Krishna's verse. So Lord Shri Krishna, he is saying to Arjunji, he is taking a wonderful analogy to explain a person, the symptoms of a person who is situated in divine consciousness or who is fixed in perfect knowledge. Tasya pragya, divine consciousness. Pratishtha, one who is fixed up. So one who is fixed up in perfect knowledge, one who is fixed up in divine consciousness, samadhi, sthitadhi. So that person, Lord Shri Krishna compares him with a tortoise. So tortoise, all of us know that he is able to withdraw his senses. The tortoise is able to withdraw his limbs, his working senses, hands and legs. He is able to withdraw them and his eyes, his head, everything. All his senses within his shell. So the example Lord Shri Krishna is taking, yada saharate, one who is able to withdraw, wind up. So yada saharate cha ayam, all this, cha ayam, kurmo angani iva. So kurmo, a tortoise, angani iva, all his limbs, angani iva sarvashaha, altogether. Sarvasha, altogether the tortoise is able to withdraw his limbs inside his shell. Indriyani indriyarthebhya. So indriyani, the senses, indriyarthebhya, artha, importance or valuable. So for the senses, sense objects are very much valuable. So indriyani indriyarthebhya. So similarly, tasya pragya pratishtaha, one who is able to withdraw the senses from the sense objects, indriyarthebhya, indriyani indriyarthebhya, indriyarthebhyasya tasya pragya pratishtaha. Lord Shri Krishna is explaining to Arjuna. A person who is fixed in perfect knowledge, a person who is in the state of samadhi, a person who has attained divine consciousness, he should be able to control his senses. He should be a master of the senses. He should be master of all his senses. His knowledge acquiring senses as well as his working senses. So one who is fixed up in divine consciousness, because a person who is fixed up in divine consciousness, he acts only for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. So he should use his senses only for the service of the Supreme Lord who is master of the senses, Rishikesha. And a person who is situated in divine consciousness, he is also master of his senses. That's why they are known as a person, those who have really achieved divine consciousness or divine knowledge, or those who have attained the state of divine Krishna consciousness, they are known as Goswamis. Goswamis, or person who are able to control their senses according to their plan. And they plan only for the service of the Supreme Lord. That is also another symptom. They plan only for the service of the Supreme Lord. So, a person who is situated in divine consciousness should not be a Godasa. The senses, they are compared, Swami Srila Prabhupada is writing in the purport, and all the Vaishnava acharyas and all the acharyas in all the disciplines, personal, impersonalist, everyone, they know, they have explained that the senses are like serpents. The senses are compared to venomous serpents, and they want to act loosely without any restriction. They do not want, senses do not want restrictions. The mind is also compared to, as Lord Shri Krishna will compare the mind, which is the central point of all the senses. Manashasthani indriyani. So the senses and mind, so a yogi or a person who is self-realized, Swami Srila Prabhupada wrote in the purport, a yogi, a self-realized person, or a devotee of the Supreme Lord, he should be able to control his senses. If he is not, and Lord Shri Krishna is giving the example of a tortoise, kurmo angani va sarvashaha, altogether. The tortoise is able to withdraw his whole head, all his eyes, nose, his mouth, his ears, everything inside his shell, and his hands and legs, his limbs, other parts of the body altogether. So the kurmo or the tortoise is able to withdraw all his senses inside his body, his shell. Kurmo angani va sarvashaha. Lord Shri Krishna is taking, that's why Lord Shri Krishna is taking the example. So those who are on the path, those who are practicing sadhana bhakti, that's why there are so many do nots and don'ts. Do's and don'ts. Do nots and do's. Swami Srila Prabhupada wrote in the purport. So all the yogis, for all the yoga practices, yam and niyam, they are the first thing. Yam, those things which are restricted, and niyam, those things which have to be followed. Yam, niyam. Then other stages. So the very first stages are do's and don'ts. So in Krishna consciousness, Swami Srila Prabhupada has also given us do's and don'ts. For us, all of us, those who are trying to practice Krishna consciousness, those who are trying to become devotees of the Supreme Lord, or those who are trying to engage in Bhakti Yoga, Buddhi Yoga, or in Karma Yoga for the service of the Supreme Lord, for the service of the spiritual master, for them also there is do. And that do is very, very simple. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has recommended Kirtaniya Sada Hari. So Swami Srila Prabhupada has also recommended Kirtaniya Sada Hari, chant the holy names of the Supreme Lord, do's, niyam. But niyam with some restrictions, yam niyam, with some don'ts. Because, and Swami Srila Prabhupada always takes the example of a doctor. Doctor prescribes some medicine, and at the same time doctor also restrict the patient from doing certain things. If somebody is suffering from cold, and if he or sore throat, and if he takes oily food, then the medicine will, of course the medicine will have effect, but the effect will be nullified and the disease will be prolonged. So that's why there are certain don'ts, yam and niyam, certain don'ts and certain do's, which are for any yoga. So even in Krishna consciousness, for all the practitioners, Swami Srila Prabhupada has asked them to chant the holy name of the Supreme Lord. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he asked that one should chant holy name always, 24 hours a day. But because we are so fallen in this age, so Swami Srila Prabhupada has asked at least 2 hours. 2 hours of serious chanting on the beats. So 2 hours of chanting 16 rounds of holy name, and then there are don'ts. No meat eating. The tongue want to act freely and it want to taste palatable dishes. And so senses, so no meat eating. The tongue want to act freely, and for the sense enjoyment one is ready to kill even others. So no meat eating, no gambling. The mind want to enjoy the rasa of getting benefits without some hard work. So no gambling, no meat eating, no illicit sex. no illicit sex, no intoxication, all the senses and the mind, they want to act without restrictions, freely, and hence their one who is not able to control them, he cannot be called a sage of fixed mind. He cannot be called a sage who is situated in divine consciousness, or a person who is situated, who has attained perfect knowledge. So Lord Shri Krishna is explaining the symptoms. One who is able to withdraw his senses from sense object, giving a wonderful example or an analogy as the tortoise. Tortoise draws his limbs within the shell, is to be understood as truly situated in knowledge. So that's why there are don'ts and do's in Krishna consciousness also for all the practitioners. And when one is situated in divine consciousness, or when one achieves that state, then such restrictions, such do's and don'ts, they automatically become part of one's life. One do not have further interest in all these nonsense things, all these demands of the senses, and one uses his senses. One who is fixed up in Krishna consciousness, he uses his senses only for the service of the Supreme Lord, understanding well that he is a servant, eternal servant of the Supreme Being. So in the purport, Swami Srila Prabhupada writes, the test of a yogi devotee, the test of a yogi or a devotee or a self-realized soul is that he is able to control the senses according to his plan. If a devotee makes some plan for the service of the Supreme Lord, or if a yogi makes some plan for the service of the super soul, and he is not able to control his senses only, then he is not situated in divine consciousness. The example of Sabri Muni comes in Srimad Bhagavatam. He was trying to control his senses. He went deep inside the water. He was such a great yogi, and he was able to control his senses that he sat beneath water. He sat underwater, but there also he saw two fishes mating, and then he thought of getting married, and the yoga process was interrupted in between. So one who is situated in divine consciousness, or those who are practitioners, they should follow, unless that divine consciousness is reached, unless that perfect stage when one's mind is fixed in the Supreme Lord or the Super Soul, unless that stage is reached, one should follow the don'ts, the do's and the don'ts, the process of sadhana bhakti. So most people, however, are servants of the senses. Godasas, Swami Srila Prabhupada has always explained, those who are not able to control their senses, they are actually Godasas. They are not yogis, they are bhogis. So yogi, bhogi and rogi. There are three terms. Yogi is a person who is able to control his senses. Bhogi is a person who serves his senses as per their demands. And a rogi, or a person who is diseased, is a person who is not able to who do not have control on anything. He is neither able to serve his senses, he is in a disease condition, and the senses are also not in control, they are uncontrolled, everything topsy-turvy. So he is a rogi, he is a diseased person. But a yogi is a person who is able to control his senses according to his plan. Most people, however, are servants of their senses, and thus directed by the dictation of the senses. That is the answer of the question as to how the yogi should be situated. People, they ask how a yogi should be situated, and Lord Shri Krishna is taking an example of the tortoise. So senses are compared to venomous serpents. Swami Srila Prabhupada has explained, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has explained, all the Vaishnava acharyas and all the acharyas of other sampradayas, Even the impersonalist, they know very well, either personalist or impersonalist, all those who try to control their senses, they know very well that the senses are like venomous serpents. The serpent or the snake, as soon as he gets an opportunity, he bites. The snake is compared to as a very, very envious living entity. As soon as he gets an opportunity, he bites. So the senses are compared to venomous snake. As soon as they get an opportunity, they indulge into sense gratification. As soon as the senses get some opportunity or some opportunity, they indulge in sense gratification. So they are compared to as venomous serpents. They want to act very loosely and withdraw and without restriction. They want to act loosely. Senses want unrestricted sense enjoyment. You go on supplying and they will never be satisfied. And if somebody tries to restrict, one becomes angry, the mind becomes angry. A person who is engaged in sense gratification, if one tries to restrict his sense gratification, or if one tries to take away the objects of the senses, then he becomes angry. So they want to act very loosely and without restriction. The yogi or the devotee must be very strong. So one who is not strong, he cannot be called a person fixed in divine consciousness. With the strength of divine consciousness, with the strength of perfect knowledge, one should be mentally very strong. The mind is the center of all the senses. So one who is able to withdraw his mind from sense gratificatory ideas or from sense gratificatory pursuits, that's why Lord Shri Krishna, he explained, one who act without fruitive mentality, fruitive actions, because it is the mind where all these desires are generated. So a yogi or devotee must be strong to control the serpents, like a snake charmer. So like a snake charmer, he uses some mantras. The snake charmers in India, there are in the villages, still there are so many snake charmers. They used to chant some mantras and they used to control the serpents. So similarly for us, those who are practicing Krishna consciousness, for us so many teachings of Lord Shri Krishna are there. These are the mantras. These wonderful verses of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, instructions of the spiritual master, they are mantra for us. So for all the practitioners, all those who are trying to practice Krishna consciousness, all those who are in sadhana bhakti, all these instructions, wonderful instructions of the Supreme Lord in Bhagavad Gita, all the instructions of Sukadev Goswami, of various sages in Srimad Bhagavatam, of the Supreme Lord in Srimad Bhagavatam, they are mantras for us. So with the help of these mantras, we should also be able to control our mind and senses. Whenever our senses and our mind, they demand some sense gratification, some sort of sense pleasure, we should try to charm them with these mantras. These wonderful instructions of Bhagavad Gita, of Srimad Bhagavatam, of various Goswamis, of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So one must be very strong to control the serpents like a snake charmer. He never allows, a yogi never allows them to act independently. There are many injunctions in the revealed scriptures. Some of them are do nots and some of them are do's. Don'ts and do's. Yam and niyam. So unless one is able to follow the don'ts and the do's, restricting oneself from sense enjoyment, it is not possible to be firmly fixed in Krishna consciousness. The best example set herein is the tortoise. The Supreme Lord is best of all the people, personalities. He is supreme, and the example set by Lord Shri Krishna is the best example. So the best example is set by the Supreme Lord Himself, and that example is of the tortoise. The tortoise can at any moment wind up his senses and exhibit them again. And it is not like that the tortoise has lost his senses. The senses are there. But one who is able to control them, one who is able to withdraw, and when there is a need, when there is a right purpose, when the senses are required for the service of the Supreme Lord, so the tortoise is able to exhibit them again when required. Similarly, a person in Krishna consciousness, a person in divine consciousness, a person in samadhi, it is not like that he has lost his senses. He again exhibits them or uses them for specific purposes which are meant for the service of the Supreme Lord, which are meant for the service of the pure soul in his pure consciousness. So similarly, the senses, the tortoise can any moment bind up his senses and exhibit them again at any time for particular purpose. Similarly, the senses of the Krishna conscious person are used only for some particular purpose in the service of the Lord and are withdrawn otherwise. Keeping the senses always in the service of the Lord is the example set by the analogy of the tortoise who keeps the senses within. So keeping the senses always in the service of the Lord is the example set by the analogy of the tortoise who keeps the senses within. So very, very beautiful verse, very, very beautiful example set by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna, for a person who is situated in divine consciousness, or for all the practitioners, even the practitioners or the sadhakas, they can understand how they should act if they want to attain that divine consciousness. So yada saharate chayam kurmo angani iva sarvashah, yada saharate chayam kurmo angani iva sarvashah, indriyani indriyarthebhyas tasya pragya pratishtha. One who is able to withdraw his senses from sense objects as the tortoise draws his limbs within the shell is to be understood as truly situated in knowledge or perfect knowledge or in divine consciousness. So with this I would like to stop here. In our next session we'll try to understand the purport of Lord Shri Krishna's wonderful teachings and instructions through the beautiful purports of His Divine Grace Abhay Charnarvinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Shrila Prabhupada. Till then, Jai Vishnupad Paramhans Parivrajacharya Shrotra Shat Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Krishna Kripa Murti Abhay Charnarvinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Shrila Prabhupada Ji Ki Jai. All glories to His Divine Grace Abhay Charnarvinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Shrila Prabhupada. All glories to Bhagavad Gita, all glories to Lord Shri Krishna, all glories to Holy Name, all glories to Lord Chaitanya. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hare Hare Bol, Hare Krishna.